question, so I just wanted to know if I'm interpreting it correctly. That wouldn't be considered acceptable according to this new reg?
Donna, this is Al Santos, so let me try to answer that question. The CERG, if it's just an empty canister, it doesn't have the heat load that's inside the canister, and what happens is that you don't get the convection and you don't get the inflow of possible chlorides and such. So whereas we can't say it's endorsed or approval or any of those language, that what we can say is that that would be a tough challenge to come to us and say that that is a surrogate for the rest of the fleet, because if you don't have the influx of the air, then you won't have deposition. If you don't have deposition, then you don't have the typical environment that we would expect for the other canisters.
Right, okay.
This is Mark Lombard. I might add to that it's a good idea to have an empty canister there that's easier to inspect than the loaded canisters. There's no dose implications or temperature implications. But again, as Al said, it wouldn't be considered part of the AMP for that system.
Okay. Thanks. And I would like if you would put in put in a little English language where you refer to certain ASME things, but something key like the fact one of the ASME requirements will allow a 75% through-wall crack. That would not be clear to the average reader because they wouldn't be familiar with those ASME codes to know that. I know it was in one of your recent slides, which made it, anyway, it was more helpful. So if you could throw in a little English or a little bit of definition on some of these ASMEs that are so significant, that would be helpful for terms of transparency for the average person trying to understand these documents. Thank you.
Donna, this is Jennifer Davis. I'm Senior Storage Project Manager. We aren't recording comments at this meeting, so if you could submit that through the comment submittal process, we would really appreciate it so that we can make sure it doesn't get lost.
Okay, yeah, I know that. I just thought it would help to bring it up. Thanks.
Thank you, Donna. I mean, that is a helpful comment. We have to be careful here, though, at NRC, because the ASME code is something that you have to purchase and buy, and they have a business model for their product, and for us to then identify all the things that are in that product would not be. We just can't do it because it's part of their code that people have to purchase. But what we will do is, we can provide some information, but we can't put the whole entire, the requirements that they have proprietarily made in their document. But you can download and purchase that. You can come to our document center to collect those. But it's tough to put it into a publicly available document.
All right, thank you. Michelle, who do we have next on the phone?
Our next question comes from David Martin. Your line is now open.
How long do dry casts last? Is that what I heard asked? Okay, how long do dry casts last? NRC staff, anybody discuss that?
Well, that's a tough one to answer. This is Al Santos again. What was the name? What was your name?
David Martin.
David, that's a tough question to answer, because right now what we're trying to develop here and what we're trying to produce in this document is the procedures and protocols for which we manage aging in these dry storage systems. For the dry storage systems, if we have a protocol that is based on operational experience and based on inspection and based on a repair, replace, or mitigation strategy, some of these can last for a very, very long time, and in reality, a indeterminate time, because you can repair, you can replace, and such going forward. So the piece of this effort that we're putting into 1927 Rev 1 is really the procedures by which you manage aging going forward for a long, long time.
Thank you, David. Good question. Michelle, who do we have on the phone next? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss somebody?
This is Michelle Sampson with the licensing branch, and I guess I would just like to augment Al's response by noting that we license for a specific term. So currently, systems are licensed for a 20-year term. Our regulations were recently changed to allow them to be licensed for a 40-year term. For the renewal period, the focusing of the aging management review, as Al mentioned, is to ensure that we are identifying any degradation mechanisms evaluating those mechanisms to determine if the items can be repaired, if they need to be replaced, or if there is damage beyond that which would be acceptable under the acceptance criteria of the aging management program. And it's that mechanism that will identify the time-limiting factors for how long a CAS can be used. So there is no generic answer to that question, but our licensing process is in place to ensure that those items are identified and casks are licensed for a period and that they will meet the regulatory requirements during the period that they are licensed.
Okay. All right, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. And then Michelle on the phone. Do we have another question on the phone?
Yes, our next question from the phones comes from Mr. John Kessler. Your line is now open.
Thank you. I have a clarifying question about bounding analyses and the number of sites that need to be inspected to assure that each site is following bounding or is under the bounding analysis situation. Are you going to require that every single site do some sort of inspection to confirm that they're bounding? And that's the first question. And then the second question is, for some particular COC where those inspections have been done, the next COC comes in, can the next COC refer to the inspections that were done to potentially maybe subdivide how many additional inspections need to be done for the next renewal?
Thank you, John. This is Chris Manovac. So currently, at least how we presented in the guidance, is until we have a good base of operating experience, for example, for COC renewal, we would want a baseline inspection conducted at every site to essentially determine or show that they are bounded by the, quote, bounding inspection conducted as part of the COC application. And we also talk a little bit about it in Appendix C in the use of surrogate inspections. And we do feel that until we have that good base of operating experience, we're discouraging the use of surrogate inspection, and I think it looks like Al is going to add a little bit to that.
No, I concur. This is Al Santos, NRC. John, I think that it's, as we get a better operational experience data set, the better we will be able to determine what is bounding or what is, and such. So until such time, we just feel that there's going to be a large hill to climb here until we get to the, the first data sets.
I'm going to check back in the room here. Is there any questions here in the room before we go back to the phone?
I'll ask you a question.
Sure.
Brian Gutherman. I just want to try to get more clarification on the baselines versus the pre-application inspections. Are you saying, or did you just say that every user's site would have to do a pre-application inspection for that COC holder, or no?
No, the thought is that the application would have some provisions for the users to conduct a baseline inspection prior to them entering the period of extended operation. So they wouldn't need to do that before submittal of the COC application, but before their systems enter their period of extended operation, there's an expectation that they would conduct a baseline inspection. So depending when they loaded. And I wanted to add, the lead system inspection, I know we've also had a lot of discussion on this in our meetings over the last year. This really is one of the areas where we're looking for comments, for stakeholder comments on this. So, we appreciate all these questions today, but, we would really encourage submittal of comments to, make sure that we've considered everything when we issue the final guidance on that one. So we appreciate it.
And this is Al Santos. Let me just buttress that point, is that, we understand that when a COC applicant comes in for renewal, not every site is going to go into the period of extended operation. So to ask everyone to do an inspection at that time seems to be is not going to help us, for getting to that 19th and 20th year. So that's why we're looking for, giving that option for the COC licensees, or the licensees that have a COC, to go and do the inspection prior to them going into the baseline inspection. So we're making two words, baseline and then the the application, what was the word used?
I think lead system
inspection, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else in the room?
I had a second one, but it's not my turn.
Let me check on the phone first, Rod. Sorry, I don't mean to keep putting you off. Michelle, is there other people on the phone?
Yes, your next question from the phones comes from Mr. Paul Plant. Your line is now open.
Yes, good morning. My question has to do with the sample concrete AMP, and in there contemplates the idea of doing visual inspections of below-grade underground areas at a certain interval. I know at our sites the pads are quality category C, which means they have a minor impact on safety. And I'm wondering what the logic is behind doing a underground visual inspection of such an item. If you've gone and checked to make sure they're level, there's no settlement going on, say you've checked groundwater, what your logic might be behind doing that.
This is Ricardo Torres, materials engineer. Paul, the logic here is to try to stay consistent with the code in ACI 349-3R. By no means this is a requirement. This is again to stay consistent with the guide, but we do clarify in the guidance that the use of opportunistic inspections in lieu of focused inspections may be properly addressed in the application. So for situations like you're describing where the pad might just be a category C, then it would be for the licensee or the COC holder to make an argument of why visual inspections of accessible areas would be sufficient to identify any potential below-grade issues.
Paul, this is Al Santos. Please remember, this appendix has a generic AMP, and as Ricardo just mentioned, that it's the licensees and the COC holders who can come in and provide that type of explanation for those systems that are of that type of class of safety.
Okay, Michelle, do we have another person on the line that's for the first round of questions?
Yes, our next question from the phones comes from Donna Gilmore. Your line is now open.
Hey, Michelle, do we mind if we hold off on Donna? We have a couple more people in the room that would be first round, and then we'll go right to Donna, if that's okay?
Yes, ma'am, that's fine.
Okay. All right, we'll start here in the room.
Chris Cummings, NEI. I want to go back to the lead canister inspection. I think you're going to see you're going to get a lot of comments on that. So you talked about somebody coming in for a pre-application, talking about how they would do that lead canister inspection. Now it takes a significant amount of time, planning, resources to get ready for doing that inspection, because you're going into a high radiation area. For vertical systems, you have to take off the lid, possibly horizontal ones you have to take off the top cover. That's a pretty significant activity. So given how much time and effort is going to have to go into planning that, and the request or what's in the guidance to do this lead canister inspection, does the NRC have a recommendation on how early a COC holder should come in for a pre-application meeting to get, I would say what I'm hearing, buy-in on what that lead canister inspection looks like, so that there is appropriate time to budget, plan, and do a test that sounds like the NRC is looking to get at least some I don't know if approval is the right word, but feedback might be one that you would use more. You're nodding your head. So what might that time frame be?
So we haven't discussed specific timeframes for, when that pre-application meeting would have to occur for all those things you just mentioned to happen. And actually, I think, Chris, you asked me a question, and I'm going to turn it back on you and our industry folks to think about sort of the lead times for for how long that would take, and we would love to get a comment in that regard. So I didn't mean to turn your question, back on you, but I think that would be some very valuable information for the NRC to understand, what are the time frames that, COC holders need to work with their users, to work with the general licensees, and then to actually get to the point where you're doing that inspection, you get results, and that those could be included in the application. So I think we haven't determined a specific time for how early that pre-app would happen, but we would appreciate comments in that regard.
Okay.
Well, industry would be doing.
Yeah, I think our comments would be more along the lines of not needing a lead canister inspection for the purposes of a CFC pre-application meeting, and simply making sure that you define what are the criteria so that as individual licensees who are under a generic CFC know what the appropriate inspection process are as they go into extended operation. But obviously, we'll think about that and provide comments as part of the public comment.
Yeah, I definitely concur with Mrs. Alessandro's, Chris's comments. Please provide your feedback to us about the operational perspectives of how, what those logistics would be and the difficulties and the hardships there. I think that one of your documents that EPRI is working on, the Chloride SSC susceptibility matrix or whatever it's called, right? That's right. That is I would say a good basis to go forward with saying, these are the areas that we've considered. I'm sure we'll be involved in that discussion of that document. But those are the types of things that if you can go through a kind of a structured review of why you chose this is your lead system inspection. That's kind of what we're getting to. Just some sort of concept of how did you prioritize this one as the one that we need more information from.
Okay, thank you.
This is Chris Banovac to add on to that. If we did get a comment to the effect of, we don't think, the lead system inspection is needed for the COC application, we would also appreciate any ideas for alternatives. We do in Appendix B and C1, we try to really get to, what is the purpose of this inspection? What information is it providing? What is it buying us? And, we use the words, it's an, important element or essential element of this operations-focused approach. And I think now there is alignment on this operations-focused approach for renewal. So we would appreciate, if the comment is this doesn't need to happen as part of the COC renewal application, any information as to an alternative and how we start down the road of this operations-focused approach, if we're not getting those inspections as part of the application. So I would just, task you to sort of be thinking about that as you are developing your comments. Thank you.
Okay, Michelle, let's go back to Donna, and then after Donna, we'll go to Rod, and we'll keep alternating between the phone and the room.
Yes, your next question from Donna Gilmore. Your line is now open.
Hi, it's Donna again. The whole document am I understanding it right? It's based on the fact that there will be an inspection tool available at renewal that will be able to not only find cracks in the thin canister, but be able to determine the depth of the crack. Is that an assumption that you have in this revision?
Donna, this is Daryl Dunn. I think your question really goes more towards the AMP on stress corrosion cracking, and we have provided an example AMP in the revision to New Reg 1927. We understand that there are capabilities for both visually detecting indications that cracking and localized corrosion may have occurred. There are capabilities for measuring the depths of cracks. We believe this is the technical challenge here is a delivery challenge, not an instrumentation challenge, but how you get that instrumentation in there and record that data. And we are currently working with the ASME code to develop a consensus code and standard for the examination and inspection of dry cast storage systems, and that's going to include the inspection methods and the acceptance standards and the corrosion degradation assessment methodologies.
So it is based on finding a tool so that you can do this.
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by a tool, but there are established methodologies for finding cracks in localized corrosion in welded stainless steel materials. But
none of them can currently today be utilized in canisters filled with spent nuclear fuel sitting inside a concrete overpack. Is that correct?
There has to be a delivery system developed to make those systems work in dry cast storage systems, and that's what we're working with ASME to develop the standards for how that would be done, and industry is looking to develop the tooling to actually do that type of inspection.
So that this new reg is dependent on that delivery system being available. Correct?
No, the vendor's inspection of those systems is dependent on the development of those systems.
But isn't inspection what's required in this new reg?
We have an example AMP in the new reg that is focused on the detection of chloride-induced stress corrosion cracking that relies on inspection of the canisters.
Right.
Donna, this is Al Santos. There have been inspections done, and those inspections that were done have the delivery device and the inspection, the visual inspection cameras. Okay. What is going down now is like we've done with the Calvert Cliffs license renewal. We've given a period of time for them to develop the entire system, because it's a piece where we do have techniques that can inspect. It is, like Daryl's saying, a delivery issue. And the delivery issue, the industry has been working on many unique types of delivery devices, and we're actually going to be going down to see some in the near future here at an actual site with an actual overpack and such, and to see how much that delivery device development, how much that's improved over just in the last 6 months to 8 months. And so we've already had some done, and the industry has been very forthright about going forward and developing new delivery devices, because the systems, the techniques are already there. So I have full confidence.
I don't understand what might be developed to measure a crack depth. That's the one that's throwing me. I'm not as optimistic on that. So, do you know which technology looks the most promising to be able to find the depth of the cracks?
Yes, Donna, this is Daryl Dunn. Characterizing the dimensions of cracks can be done with a couple of different methods. Ultrasonic testing is certainly one of them that's been established and has been utilized in many different reactor piping systems, and the surface dimensions of those flaws could also be detected with eddy current testing, which is also recognized in the ASME code. So there are techniques that are available. It's a delivery system challenge, and as Al mentioned, the first demonstration of that delivery system for an actual dry cast is scheduled to take place in September.
Donna, this is Mark Lombard. I want to add, too, that it's our job to set the performance expectations from the regulatory standpoint to make sure the important safety functions are maintained, and it's industry's job to go ahead and figure out how to meet those expectations, and we're monitoring that work very closely. Not working with them, we're just monitoring the work that they're doing, and what we've seen so far is that it makes us confident that by the time those inspections are required to be done for the extended period of operation, that those delivery systems will be available.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Rod, do you want to go ahead and give your next second round question, then we will check in the room again and then go back to the phones again, of course?
The second question concerns the Appendix D, which will now be taking the substantive content of ISG 24 and rolling it into the new reg. Want to make sure that once that's done, you'll then sunset the ISG so we don't have two parallel documents out there that could create regulatory unpredictability.
Rob, that's right. So what we're trying to do here is we also need to incorporate into this, we're evaluating whether it needs to go into 1536 and 1567, new reg 1536 and 1567, okay, for the initial applications as well. We're assessing that, and once that's done, okay, and once we determine if we need to incorporate it in there or not, then we will, figure out a way to sunset it. But yes, I'm a big proponent of sunsetting ISGs by incorporating them into SRPs and move forward and not make them interim anymore.
We'll look forward to that. Thanks.
Okay, let's check with the phone. If we have one more question on the phone, and then I'll check with NRC staff to see if they still want to take a break. Michelle, is there another question on the phone?
Yes, our next question comes from John Kessler. Your line is open.
Yeah, thank you. Again, this is about inspections, the number of inspections, what you can use for substitution for inspections. Regarding Paul Plant's question about doing concrete inspections and what I understood Ricardo Torres responded, there was a discussion about using some opportunistic inspections in place of actually going and doing groundwater inspections. I think that's a great idea. I just want to point out that obviously makes some assumptions that the opportunistic inspection can be shown to be bounding. And that seems a little bit different than saying you have to inspect every different site underneath the pad, whatever. So that's just one observation. Another observation could be that I think I heard it said that for COC renewals that affect quite a few different sites, inspections would be done on a site-by-site basis as they approach the license renewal period. So a general or theoretical question would be, let's say for those initial sites, the inspections yield results that are, for lack of a better term, well below bounding. How many inspections need to be done if they're well below bounding before the later sites can say we don't need to do as many inspections because of what's been found before us? The COC renewal, I assume, would commit everybody to inspections. So the first part of the theoretical question is, if you find something that's much below bounding, can the renewal inspection part be revised to maybe really scale back the number of additional inspections that have been made in the context of a learning AMP?
Hi, this is Michelle Sampson with the licensing branch. So I guess to clarify, with the certificate renewals, there would be a baseline inspection, and then there would be an aging management program. And the baseline inspection is what we would anticipate would be performed at each site utilizing the certificate before the site went into the period of extended operation. At this time, there is very limited operational data for the spent fuel storage systems, and we believe the baseline inspection is one of the key mechanisms to build that database of operational experience. So we see it as an important aspect, and I don't anticipate that it would be something that would go away in the near future, that baseline inspection would be there for the certificate users as they approach the period of extended operation. Now, the aging management programs have aspects in them for acceptance criteria and for a learning aging management program, whereby you could gain experience from inspections and then could request changes to the aging management program. And that certainly is an aspect that we expect as we gain operational experience and as sites go through implementing aging management programs, that there will be lessons learned, and potentially those aging management programs will grow over time and develop into more mature programs.
This is John Wise. John, I just want to go back to the very first comment you made on that question regarding the opportunistic inspections. Just from the perspective of how this occurs in a reactor licensing for renewals,
it's not unusual for reactor licensees for renewed licenses for reactors to come in and say, we prefer to do a particular inspection opportunistically rather than